Welcome to another edition of Preps Plus Extra. How you doing? I'm Mark Stewart, prep editor of the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. Joining me again in his Brewer gear, J.R. Radcliffe.
Ready for spring.
Yes, J.R. Radcliffe, sports editor of Now Newspapers. Another state tournament edition of Preps Plus Extra. Before we start talking about the girls' state tournament, which will be this week in Green Bay, or Ashwaubenon, however you want to call the city limits up there. Let's look back at the boys' state tournament. We got two area champions, Whitefish Bay Dominican in Division IV repeats, and of course Germantown repeats in Division I. You were up there for the finals. What are your closing thoughts?
Well, first of all, Germantown's really, really good, and we saw that most of all in the first half of the semifinal against Oshkosh North. I thought Oshkosh North played really well. I was really impressed with them. They've got a balanced team. They're all coming back next year. I was really impressed with their skill set, and Germantown scored 52 points on them in the first half. That's just a tremendous performance. I think it's the single greatest half of basketball I've seen at a state tournament, and they proved what's gotten them to that point. They have the inside game with Luke Fisher. They've got the outside game with Jake Showalter hitting 7 3-pointers. They've got smart defenders. They've got Lamonte Bearden handling the point. They were tremendous in every facet of the game, and this is just what they've done all year. And they were able to beat North handily. They were able to beat a pretty strong upstart McGuanago team handily in the championship game, and soared to the championship. They've won 56 games in a row, and they deserve it.
Yeah, you know, the thing that stood out to me, a couple things, well, three things, but we'll start with Germantown. One, as I'm watching the McGuanago game, and it was really a grinded out kind of game. It's really the game that they really haven't had to win, this year in terms of really just having to grind something out. And then I'm writing the story as the game ends, and I look at the score, and it's still a 29-point game.
I know, right?
They really closed. And to McGuanago's credit, it was really 11 or 12-point game till
closed on a 19-0 run. Germantown did to put some space in between.
Yeah, but still, it was like you're talking about them grinding out this victory, and then it's a 29-point game. So I just kind of got a little chuckle out of that. And to piggyback on your point about the Oshkosh North game, and I've seen this with them before, with Germantown before, where it seems like, the team they're playing, you look and you're thinking, oh, if you didn't look at the score, you would think, oh, this team's playing okay against them.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you look up and it's 20 points, and it's just a steady stream, with what Germantown was able to do this year with, be it the inside game or the three-pointer Lamonte Bearden. That wasn't fair. Lamonte Bearden hitting, not only two buzzer-beating three-pointers, but they were one was at least 22, 23 feet, and the other one was maybe 25, 27 feet, to end the first and the second quarters. Dwayne Wilson in Division IV.
Awesome.
You talk about some highlight reel plays and drawing some oohs and ahs from the crowd. I think that was, in terms of like a wow factor moment. I think, he maybe cornered the market in terms of plays,
Right. One-handed dunk and then the behind-the-back pass to Diamond Stone in transition for a two-handed slam. That was, I think, easily the most awe-inspiring moments of the state tournament this weekend.
Yeah. And speaking of dunks, the one that really surprised me was Aaron Nixon to Dominic Sazowskis.
It was a beautiful thing.
Yes, and it was not because I didn't think Dominic could get up that high, because he is a great athlete. But it was just, as you see the lob, you're wondering, like, where the heck is he throwing the ball?
Right.
And then all of a sudden, Dominic swoops in and gets a two-handed dunk, and it was a three-point play. So those were some fantastic moments for me from this state tournament.
We talked about with the McGuanago team how they weren't just a bunch of big kids, that they could run the floor, they could make plays, they had some skills, and we saw that. We saw that in that play, and certainly in the game before it, where they really staged the surprise of the tournament and beat Milwaukee King and really led most of the game, almost the entire game. So they showed that they have some skill. They're pretty good basketball players and represented themselves well, got themselves in the state championship game for the second time in school history.
Yeah, that was, like I said, that was a fantastic job by the Indians. But there are other Indians. Another McGuanago team is making it to the state tournament this year. That's the McGuanago girls team. We got McGuanago, Arrowhead, Milwaukee Riverside in Division I, giving us a great chance for an all-Milwaukee area final.
Sure.
But before we start talking about the girls' side, let's hear about what Milwaukee Riverside had to say about getting back to state.
We was losing, but then we came back and worked hard as a team, and we pushed ourselves harder and harder to get where we at now. We said we're not going to let down, and we have another half, so the second quarter we turned up. They're a family to me. They're all my sisters, and we all work together. We don't argue. When we down, we push each other to get where we at, and this is how we come out.
It's been real challenging, real humbling. I mean, to start out the season ranked #1 in the state, go 1-4, and then rebound from that. Most teams won't rebound for that. But the girls gelled. They built a lot of character taking those early losses, and now we're 2 wins away from our ultimate goal. We'll have practice Monday. You know, we'll celebrate this tonight. 24-hour rule, we're done with it. You know, this is only part 4 of our test. We got 2 more parts, and you know, we'll just get at it on Monday, work hard, and get ready to bring this thing back home to Milwaukee where it belongs.
So Milwaukee Riverside will play Superior in one Division I final. That's going to be around 8:15 on Friday. Milwaukee Riverside there, as Coach noted in the clip there, you know, they started out high, ranked #1. You know, then they had that, you know, they dropped 4 of the first 5 games, and they sort of were, at least from a state perspective, I think they kind of were left, you know, kind of forgotten about a little bit.
You wonder how that would have changed the mentality of the season, because if you're a team that if you're like a Germantown, now Germantown's sort of in a special category, but the target's on the back all year long, and Steve Showalter talked about that, how every team gave them a new look, their best shot. You wonder with Riverside if teams were able to say, okay, they're not as big a threat as we thought, and maybe they didn't have to face that pressure all year long. I don't know if that played into it. I saw that Riverside team play at the over the holiday, and they just crushed Milwaukee King, and it's like, man, this team is for real. They've got a 6'5" center in Brianna Lewis, and they've got some really talented young players, and I personally think that's the favorite coming into the state tournament.
Yeah, I mean, you know, along with Brianna Lewis, they've got, you know, at least 3 other kids who probably are going to end up as Division I players, you know, by the time they work their way through the high school ranks. But I mean, I think, you know, as opposed to, you know, teams after that 1-4 start looking at them and maybe not taking them as seriously as they should, I think, you know, sometimes teams need that edge.
Right.
And I think that after, you know, Riverside went 1-4 and sort of, you know, were forgotten about a little bit, I think that kind of, you know, maybe ticked them off a little bit.
Sure.
And sometimes, you know, you need that little edge. I thought Germantown had that edge last year, especially after what happened, you know, to them in Appleton 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I think, you know, with this Riverside team, it just really kind of heightened their focus. And I think that, you know, sometimes, you know, those early losses can be, you know, a blessing in disguise.
Right.
And I think that's what happened, with this team. So assuming, you know, whoever wins the Riverside Superior semifinal will face someone from the Classic 8.
Right, McGuanago and Arrowhead. The Act 3, they've met twice before. There are tons of storylines in this one. They split during the regular season. Arrowhead won a kind of exciting matchup. They hit a free throw with 5 seconds left to win by 1 point in the regular season finale. The coach, Arrowhead first-year guy, Rick Whitty, McGuanago graduate, so and from a lot of McGuanago athletes coming out of the Whitty family, and so there's that connection. Arrowhead is just playing unbelievable basketball right now. They're only 18-8, but they've beaten just a litany of state-ranked teams to close the season since January 29th. When we talked about it before, they beat Eisenhower, they beat McGuanago. Waukesha West was ranked at the time. They beat them twice. Sussex Hamilton, and then they shot Kimberly in the playoffs on a last-second buzzer beater from sophomore Allie May, who might be one of the best players in the area that I think a lot of people don't know about. So they are riding an absolute high wave right now. McGuanago's been steady. They've lost 2 games all season, including that one to Arrowhead, and they've got a lot of senior leaders in Jenny Tuttle, the guard, who's really an all-state candidate, and Amber Gray inside, and then they have one of the best freshmen in the state, in Bree Sierra, who's already committed to UWGB.
Right, and that's you know, I was thinking of Bree as you were talking. That's going to be one of the players I'm going to be interested to see when we get to state. And let's not forget it. As far as Arrowhead goes, that list of victories included Sussex Hamilton,
right, yep,
which won the Greater Metro and you know, was the #1 seed in that particular bracket. Now in Division II, New Berlin Eisenhower is, you know, very familiar with the state tournament experience, 3 times in the last 4 years. Last year, Nicole Bauman was the focal point. This year, what makes that group go?
The supporting cast last year is pretty much all back this year, and I look particularly at Jenny Whelan and Katie Lang were 2 huge contributors on that team last year, and so they've got a lot of experience that understands what the state tournament is all about. Now, the thing for them is that they have to face New London. That's the team that beat them in the championship game last year with Nicole Bauman, and they are back to presumably be the favorite to repeat again. So this is a really tough semifinal challenge for Eisenhower, but Gary Schmidt, really impressed with the job he's done. They managed to beat Pius, kind of the rubber match. They had split during the regular season. Right. They got Pius again in the playoffs and wound up at the in the state tournament. So they're in a really good place.
Yeah, that semifinals. If it's going to be anything like last year at state, it's going to be a great defensive matchup.
Yep.
And I think maybe that was the one time last year where Eisenhower was, maybe outdone a little bit defensively by another team. So it's going to be interesting to see how, see that matchup again and see if we can get that same type of, defensive, defensive battle. Now the other two area teams are more outlying squads. You got East Troy, which is back in Division III. Brianna Gospovich is one of the area's top scorers, and pretty much that team is all the way. Has a lot of the same kids back this year that helped them last year. And then in Division IV, you got Racine Prairie, which is back and has one of the state's top players, Gabrielle Ortiz, who is has got a litany of Division I offers and is probably a sure all-state candidate.
And just a junior, so really interested to see her play. And then the team that we're not mentioning, Heritage Christian, which got upset in the sectional final. That's probably as big a surprise as any we had across the state.
Yeah, that proves it. You never know from one year to the next.
Right.
What's going to happen in a one-game setting. Anything can happen, especially given the stakes.
Definitely.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens at state next week, and we'll talk about that on the next edition of Preps Plus Extra. But that'll wrap it up for now. Till next time, I'm Mark Stewart. This is J.R. Ratcliffe. And for more Preps Plus action, be sure to catch me and Lance Allen every Sunday night on today's TMJ4. Take care.